Welcome to the Hope Mindset Podcast. I'm Mikhayla Hughes-Shaw, and 10 years ago, I started a movement called How About Hope. And the HOPE stands for helping others and providing encouragement. Our goal is to challenge negative beliefs and experiences and to break stigmas about what goes on in our minds and to live in the sunshine, especially after overcoming dark times. The Hope Mindset Podcast is all about telling stories of struggle turned strength. Why don't you just introduce yourself? Let's just start there. Who's Kevin Hines?
Who's Kevin Hines? Okay. I'm a son. I am a brother. I'm a husband to Margaret. According to other people, I'm a storyteller, an author, and a filmmaker. But I don't really identify as that. I'm just Kevin.
You're just Kevin. But you are all of those things, like you
Yeah.
just said, a storyteller, an author, a filmmaker. I would argue a survivor.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
From the very beginning. I mean, people think my survivor story started when I attempted to take my life off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived. But really, it started so long before that. I was a survivor from the very get-go of my life. My brother and I were born in the Tenderloin district of San Francisco, the worst neighborhood there then in the 1980s, the worst neighborhood there today. And we were born in squalor, in abject poverty. And we were left unattended day by day and night by night, all day long, while our parents went to do score and sell drugs. And that's not because they were bad people. They loved us dearly. They were just trying to keep a roof over our heads the only way they knew how. And they had no therapy. They had no treatment for what they were going through. They'd both been diagnosed with manic depression, what we today call bipolar disorder, the very same brain disease I would be diagnosed with at 17 and a half years of age. And so it's been a very long and interesting journey. I got my brother and I were taken away from our birth parents. We were placed in foster care. And I say I'm a survivor from the very beginning because we both got bronchitis in foster care and he died right next to me. So I survived him. I survived my birth parents who both died tragically later on. And I got very, very lucky. The Hines family took me in and made me their son. It was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me at the time. And growing up in that family really was a truly beautiful thing. We needed nor wanted for anything because Pat and Debbie worked so hard for everything they earned, and we were given the world. Me, my new brother, my new sister, all from different families, adopted into one. A mixed race family. I'm mixed. My brother's black. My sister's white, and raised in a Catholic family, still Catholic today. But at 17 and a half years of age, I felt like my world just crumbled before me. My parents had just gotten divorced. That had a catastrophic response to my system. I was not prepared for it. I didn't know it was coming. My sister did. I didn't see it. And so she was a bit prepared when my dad sat us down and said, your mother and I are getting a divorce. And, they really built this family and then it was torn apart. And, my brother didn't seem to be too affected by it. I remember we were sitting when my dad announced it and my brother goes, do I get to keep the computer? He didn't register with him. And he did get to keep the computer. And my sister and I were crying, but I really took it to heart because I just, I didn't see it as ever being in the realm of possibility that our nuclear family would be separated in some way. I never saw that coming. And at 17 and a half, diagnosed with bipolar, very same brain disease my birth parents had. And at 19 years of age, due to severe psychosis and likely probably some very serious gut health issues, reactivating and activating my mental health crisis. I went to the Golden Gate Bridge, and as you know, Mikhayla, I left off, and I prayed on the way down that I would live. I knew the moment my hands left the rail that it was, in fact, an instantaneous regret for my actions and this absolute recognition that I just made the greatest mistake of my life and it was too late. And for about 99.9% of the people that have leapt off the Golden Gate Bridge in the last 90 years, it's been too late. Mm-hmm. 40 of us have survived the fall. 5 of us can stand, walk, and run. I'm one of 5. And that's why I always say, I get to be here. I get this existence. Every painful moment, every hardship, every bit of despair is a gift because I'm alive to feel it. As I stand here talking to you through this podcast and to your audience, I'm in a world of physical pain. And I don't look at it as a bad thing. It's part of the deal. I took that action, shattering my vertebrae, 3 of them, severing my spinal cord by 2 millimeters. I have to take responsibility for that action. And I'm so lucky and blessed that I get to be alive today. So thankful for every waking moment on this earth. And I recognize something that I think people don't really truly understand. And it's something that if you have a hardship or a difficult time in your life and you just think of this one piece of information, in my opinion, you can keep going. And that is this: everyone on this planet is a thermodynamic miracle. Every single human on earth had a 1 in 400 trillionth of a chance to be birthed into this world. 1 in 400 trillionth of a chance to simply exist. That means to all who are watching who are in pain, you're meant to be here until your natural end, never to die by your hands. Suicide is not the answer. It's the problem. And I learned that the hard way. And my hope and my wish and my prayer is that people who hear my story, watch my story, read my story, however they consume it, they don't have to learn the hard way like I did. Instead, they can fully recognize that this life is worth living if you put in the time, energy, effort, and hard work for things to change. And that's a realization I've come to. Not everybody shares that same realization. I recognize that. Mm-hmm. There are people I've met who have said they regretted the fact that they survived their suicide attempt. But I have met far, far, far more people, thousands more, that have said that instant regret just like me, and they're so grateful that they survived what they did. And if you look at that, and the sheer number of people that have told me that, and that I've read about across the globe in articles, that sense of instant regret tells us a very clear story. It paints a very visual picture that just because you're thinking of suicide does not mean you have to act upon those thoughts. Those thoughts of suicide don't have to own, rule, or define what you do next. Your thoughts don't have to become your actions. They can simply be your thoughts if they're dangerous to yourself or others. And that's where I am today. I attempted in 2000 off the Golden Gate. I never attempted again, even though I live with these thoughts on a regular basis.
You and I met through advocacy work, and you and I both have that foundational understanding of not wanting to be here on this earth anymore, and dealing with either suicidal ideations or attempts. And those that haven't, I don't think that they understand that it can be something that lives with you far beyond that moment. Can you talk to me about suicidal ideations and kind of what suicidal ideations have been like in your life?
They've come in the form of, dare I say this, demons.
Mm.
Uh, um, Insidious voices in my head telling me I have to die, telling me I'm useless, worthless, and have no value. I don't belong on this earth. That I'm not worthy of love. And for years, I had to fight them tooth and nail. Today, it's more of a passing thought, you know, a fleeting thought. Today, it's more few and far between. And today, I really have built up the resolve to not let those thoughts even lead to any kind of action or planning.
And it's been, so it was in 2000 that you attempted to take your life. It's been 25 years now. At what point did you decide that you were going to take what I would argue is probably one of the worst days of your life? At what point did you decide that you were going to share your story with others?
Mikhayla, I had no intention of sharing my story with anybody. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I feared their response. I feared the reaction to what I did because everyone knew about it. Everyone knew what happened to Pat and Debbie's son. And people were having masses said for me and my family. Large congregations were praying for my recovery. And I remember the day my dad and I went back to the church I'd grown up in, and Father Michael Harriman was there giving a service that was, I swear to you, Mikhayla, was speaking right to me. It was like my dad went to him before the service, like, this is what you need to say to my son, which is entirely possible he was on their board. So I think that's totally what happened. But Father Harriman comes out of the service at the end of it and goes, Kevin, so glad to have you at church today. So glad you're feeling better. We've been praying for you. And here I am, I'm fully in my back brace, walking with my cane, embarrassed to go inside the church and have all these people see me after what I did. And so he comes out at the end of it and he says, Kevin, how would you like to come and talk about your experience this Good Friday to our 7th and 8th grade class? We'd love to have you come and share your story. And I said, oh, Father, I don't have a speech and I wouldn't know what to say. And my dad shoved me forward and goes, he'll do it. I was like, what are you doing? He goes, you'll do it. We need closure. I'm like, you need closure, old man. I need to go home and lay down. But I didn't say that out loud. That was in my head.
That was just what you said in
Yeah.
your head, of course.
He's 6'1" and I'm not, so. But I am a very tall 5'7", so it's
Yes.
true. 5'7" people understand. 5'7" and a quarter. But anyway, so, when my dad says you'll do something, it's Pat Hines. You do it. That's just that simple. So I said, see you on Good Friday, Father. And so I write a speech till 3 a.m. on Good Friday, which is not mentally healthy. I waited till the last minute, but maybe that made it good. I don't know. And then my dad that morning edited the speech from 8 to 8:30, and then 8:30 to 9 we drove to the church and the rectory there. And we get in there to Monsignor Harriman's office. We go to the rectory, and here in front of me, in one of the rooms in the rectory, are 120 7th and 8th grade kids sitting cross-legged on the floor in the Catholic uniforms I used to wear. And they're all sitting there, and here I am with my 17-page speech that I've got a paper clip on. I take the paper clip off, and I'm leaning the lip of my back brace off of the edge of the table behind me so I can barely stand. I'm holding my cane in my right hand, right? And I'm in a world of physical pain. And it's just 7 months after my attempt. And I start, and they asked me to begin. I have no formal kind of an introduction by Father Harriman, but I start dropping page by page to the floor as I'm reading the speech from the page, right? And as I'm reading the speech from the page, I'm thinking to myself, who is this going to help? What am I doing here? What a waste of my and their time. I dropped the final page to the floor. Now, you have to mind that I was the entire speech shaking and crying, shaking like a leaf, crying profusely. I was a mess. The kids were even crying. And I dropped the final page to the floor. And I think to myself, what did that do for anyone? And immediately, I counted them. 8 hands go up. And I was like, did that make a difference? Did
Mm.
that make an impact? And I call on the kid in the back, and he asked the most inappropriate question you could ask in a Catholic grade school. And the nun goes, "Don't answer that." And I was like, "I wasn't going to." And then 7 more intuitive, empowering, moving, and very powerful questions. And I knew I'd made an impact. And then I go home, and I think to myself, well, I'm never doing that again. It was great, but I'll never do that again. And 2 weeks later, Father Michael Herman calls me and says, "Kevin, come to the rectory. I've got something for you." He hands me a manila envelope and says, "Open it." And I open this large manila envelope like that, and I pull out this beautiful folder that was a pencil colored drawing of the Sacred Heart of Jesus that one of the students had done. It was beautiful. I still have it. I opened that up, and there were 120 letters from 120 kids. Now I'm no fool, Mikhayla. They were mandated to write those letters. They didn't all get together and go, "Let's all write to the suicidal guy simultaneously." But they were told to write to their heart's content, and they were given no parameters on what they could write.
Mm.
No rules. Write what you feel. 6 of them wrote of their active suicidal crisis. And because the letters were screened by the teachers and the parents, they were given the mental health help they needed, and those students are alive today. And it's my understanding that 2 of them are therapists.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh my goodness. See, and wow. Yeah, you said I'm never going to do that again. And now look at your life. Look at what you do for a living. That was kind of the catalyst
I
then.
was the catalyst but this is even more the catalyst. When my father read those letters, I watched him sit at his desk and read them cover to cover from the folder, right? He put down the final letter, closed the folder, he put it back in the manila envelope, and he turned to me in his room in his office. He said, "Kevin, we have to do this however, wherever, and whenever possible, and we cannot stop." And that was how I embarked on this journey until now. I've been doing it for 25 years.
Hmm.
And my dad would come speak with me sometimes. My uncle Kevin would come speak with me. God rest his soul. My wife, has spoken with me on many occasions. I even got the chance to present alongside Marcus Butler, who was one of the Coast Guard officers that helped save my life.
Oh, wow.
It was incredible. And most people know this part of the story, but for those of your audience who have no idea, when I hit the water under the Golden Gate Bridge and I was drowning, I couldn't get back to the surface. A sea lion pushed me to the surface and kept me afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrived behind me. And if that's not a miracle, Mikhayla, I don't know what is. But I will tell you this: um, I went back with my dad a year later to the bridge to the date of on the date of my anniversary, my 1 year anniversary. We took a purple tulip with gold pollen inside, and we dropped it over the rail of the bridge after saying a prayer. And it fell down very slowly and hit the water, made the teensiest, tiniest of ripple effects, and 2 feet to the right popped up a sea lion. And it was arguably the most beautiful moment I've ever spent with my father, next to him being the best man at my wedding, and there was no other choice.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, see, I did not know that. I didn't know that piece of it because I'm sure I hope no one has ever said that that doesn't sound real. But it does kind of sound like a movie for that sea lion to save you.
There have been plenty of people that have questioned that, and it doesn't matter to me. I have proof. I have unequivocal proof that it occurred, and
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. And, you know, it's one of God's great miracles. And I don't really care what other people think about it. I
Mhm.
was there, and it doesn't matter to me what other people think, you know.
Yeah,
So
no,
I
that
was there.
story.
And I know what happened. And had that sea lion not been there in the timely manner in which it was, I would have drowned. It's that
Mhm.
simple. This
Yeah.
creature that didn't even speak my language was the creature that saved my life.
It's unbelievable and it's beautiful. And so all of this has transpired, and you have worked really hard to make sure that your story is told, but also other stories from the Golden Gate Bridge. This was the first time of me hearing that you are one of 40 people to survive an attempt, but you're one of five that is able to really share that story. What does that mean to you?
It means I have a responsibility to give back wherever, however I can,
Mhm.
to share a message that has actually been qualitatively and quantitatively and peer reviewed proven to save lives.
Mhm.
We did both a study on my presentation, and a study has now been done outside of me on a model of my social media. Both of them have been proven to save lives. I'm not calling myself a lifesaver. I'm a conduit. I give a message in various forms of media and presentation. People go home, they do the work, they're saving and changing their own lives. But two separate studies have now proven that this type of storytelling does just that. I've known that for 2 decades.
Mhm.
Science is just catching up.
You're like, I've known this for a long time.
But I can appreciate the science behind it now because it gives some weight to what we're doing, which is very, very important. And we can take that all around the world and say, we know that there are people and there are factions of suicide preventers that say you have to use safe messaging or else you're going to cause a suicide. Saying the word suicide does not cause a suicide. Asking someone if they are thinking of killing themselves, have they made plans to take their life, and do they have the means, statistically gets more honest answers that, than saying, are you thinking of self harm? Because by definition, self harm is not suicide, it's self harm. And so when we don't talk about suicide in a public setting, in a place at a school where that has just had a child die by suicide, or in a workplace that has just lost a husband and a father and a coworker to suicide, when we don't talk about it, that can lead to things like contagion. But when we do talk about it in an educational, entertaining, humorous, hopeful, and help seeking way, we have the transformative effect of being a catalytic response to helping someone survive suicide, help them get the help they need, find help seeking behaviors, and supports for suicide prevention in the form of crisis centers and call lines. Effective messaging is the key, not safe messaging.
What does, well, because at this point, I'm sure you have had probably thousands of people, probably tens of thousands of people that have told you, maybe hundreds, that have told you that you've saved their life. How do you how do you take that? If someone says you have helped save their life, I mean, is that even a concept that you can comprehend?
So this is how I look at it. So first of all, my viral videos on my channels and other people's channels and other organizations and companies' channels, which I don't run, but I've told my story on those platforms. My viral videos have amassed well over 3 billion views. We know that. Well over 200,000 people have written into those videos and said, this story saved my life.
Hmm.
That doesn't even include the, the thousands upon thousands of emails I've received of the same notion. That doesn't even include the thousands of people who've written into the articles that have been written about me that said this story saved my life. So it just compounds, right? Once again, I don't believe I'm saving lives. I am just a messenger. And I'm going to continue to give this message because I know it has that transformative effect. But I don't want to be out here saying that I'm a lifesaver. I don't buy into that. I think that I think that the message is one that is so there's such a variety in the message from being born in poverty to being put in foster care to then being adopted to the issues I had with binge drinking in high school to the anorexia and bulimia I dealt with in high school wrestling to the attempt of suicide to the depression to the bipolar disorder to the gut to brain health issues. It's just there's a story here for everyone. It's a multifaceted story.
Mhm.
And so people find ways to relate to it in different ways and scenarios. And that is what has led the message to reach so many people. Don't be a fair weather social media advocate for mental health. Be in it for the long haul so you can help affect in changing some lives. And let people like me who've gone before you help you in that endeavor. And let's do work together where we can all make change for the greater good. Let's do some great work together for great good.
I mean, as you know, and as I know, the work isn't always pretty. And I would argue most of the time it can be very gut wrenching work. Um, what do you do to take care of yourself? Because you are, I think you do a multitude of things. I know this just because I'm your friend, but what do you do to take care of yourself in between being that conduit and being that voice for change?
I exercise. I try to eat mostly anti-inflammatory meals. I go to therapy. I do teletherapy. Um, I sometimes take months off of teletherapy because I feel fine. So um, I utilize music therapy, art therapy, uh, every module that I can find that is beneficial. I'm engaged in. And I educate myself. I read every article that comes out on bipolar disorder, every article that comes out on gut to brain health, all the books involving in those causes. I try to be up and aware about the things that are going to make me feel better. Um, when you don't have enough vitamin D, that's affecting and around your brain, you end up um, uh, increasing the thought patterns of suicide. So a lot of people who have these insidious and invasive thoughts of suicide could very well potentially be struggling with a lack of vitamin D3 in their bodies and their brains. So that's all stuff for the scientists to work out. I'm not a scientist. I can't pretend to be. I know what I've read. I know the doctors I've spoken to personally, and what I've learned from them directly. So we have to open our minds and our eyes to the possibility that 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 brain health issues, as in mental illnesses, could potentially be derived from gut health problems. Your gut maintains your serotonin and dopamine levels, creates that serotonin and dopamine from your gut, and if that's the case, we need to be wary of what we're consuming and how it's affecting our brains and our bodies and our minds.
That is a really important thing too. Just and I think that also drives home the fact that people may not view mental health conditions as a actual physical condition, but like you just said, it's your brain. It is brain health because that is what is in here, and if that is not doing what it's supposed to do, then we struggle. And I don't think that we ever say to someone that is diagnosed with cancer, like, oh, like, oh, just hang in there or something along those
Just get
lines.
over it. Just get
Just
over your.
get over it.
Why would anyone tell someone? When you have liver, heart, lung, or kidney disease,
Yeah,
everybody shows up at the hospital with flowers and teddy bears and cards and empathy and care and compassion. Who shows up the first time you end up in a psych ward? Hardly anybody.
right.
I've been in 10. My core family came.
Mhm.
Nobody else did.
You met, wait, not to get too off track here. You met your wife. Can you just, I
um,
don't want to say this wrong, but I do believe you met your wife
in a
during
second.
a stay,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I did.
Okay, let's talk about that.
We're going right into it. Okay. I met my wife in my third of 10 psych ward stays. I was a patient. She was visiting her cousin who was in the psych ward. For me, and I mean this, Mikhayla, it was love at first sight. I saw her almond brown eyes and I was done. And I was just like, don't say anything. That would be weird. She gave me a first date when I got out of the hospital.
Oh.
She gave me a second date where I told her I loved her. And she just goes, thank you.
I didn't know it was the second date, Kevin. Oh my goodness.
I know. Yeah. It was bubbling inside me. I had to say something. Maybe I was manic. I don't know, but I felt it in my bones. And 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 she gave me a third date, and the rest is history. So we've been together for 20 years, married for 18. She's the love of my life, my very best friend, Margaret Hines, the greatest gift that God has ever given me. And we work together every day, all around the world. We travel, and we're together. We're together every day. And the only time we're separated is on floors of our house when I'm doing podcasts.
So right now is
Right
me
now,
time.
this is her alone time.
Oh, I love her so much, though. Margaret is amazing. Well, and coming back to the more serious part of this, just you're right that I don't think that we as a society have the same approach to mental health conditions as we do to other physiological conditions, right? And do you think that we're making progress at all? I remember when I first met you in, I believe it was 2018. Like, so from 2018 until now, in this more post COVID time, do you think that we've made progress when it comes to having real conversations and showing up for people when they are struggling with their mental health?
I think the world has come to the conclusion that mental health is real. I think
Yeah.
that I think we found an awareness level that has hit a peak. But there's awareness, and then there's action,
Hmm.
and then there's action, and then there's solutions to the problem. We have not gotten to the crux of the solutions to the problem. The suicide rate in the world is higher than it's ever been. More black kids like you and me are dying by suicide than ever before in the history of the world. We need to find a way to physically reduce suicides across the globe by 30% in the next 20 years, or we're just going to keep going in the wrong direction.
Hmm.
70 years of traditional suicide prevention research has not solved the problem. And nobody is talking about that. Everybody's now talking about suicide mental health, but no one is talking about the fact that all of this research that was supposed to solve our problems has not done it. Hell, Mikhayla, all of the work I have done, I'm only one person. It has not solved it, and it won't solve it. So we need to come up with more creative, novel ideas to save lives than ever before in the history of humankind. I'm well aware of that. I take responsibility for my part in the lack of solution, but that means everyone else needs to do the same. We need to pivot. We need to think of new ways to change the tide.
And one thing that you mentioned just a little bit ago, you were talking about the ways in which we talk about suicide and the ways in which we talk about when someone is struggling. I do still feel like we are at that point, like you were saying, we talk about mental health and we talk about suicide and we talk about that awareness piece of it. But do you think it starts with the way that we talk to one another about it and actually having those honest and real conversations and asking the hard questions of, do you have a plan to kill yourself?
Could you imagine if every week or every month a family that sits down for dinner on Sunday dinner, which we used to do as kids, where my mom would ask me what was the peak and the pit of your day? What was the best part? What was the worst part? And we'd say the worst part, and that would be a learning lesson. And we'd say the best part, and we'd hold on to that. Having the conversation at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table with our families, starting at the age of 5, when the youngest person who's died by suicide in America. Are you thinking of killing yourself? Having made plans to take your life, or do you have the means? Having that regular conversation without hesitation and without fear is crucial to the survival of your family in today's society, where suicide is the second leading cause of death. It's crucial. You have to have the conversation. No more beating around the bush.
Yeah.
When your loved one says, "How did you know?" Don't tell them they're wrong. Don't tell them they're bad. Don't tell them what they're thinking is horrible. None of that will help. Say, "I'm sorry for what you're going through, but I want you to know that I love you endlessly. You mean the world to me, and part of me would die if you died by suicide. Please fight to be here tomorrow, and let me know right here, right now, what I can do to help keep you here, because we need you."
Yeah. The be here tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. There's far too many people that have this fear of having that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when they fear having the conversation, someone's going to die. And then they're going to wish to God they had that conversation. To all the families that did not have that conversation before it was too late, I'm sorry for your loss. Your immeasurable loss. You have an opportunity now to pass on the proper message to the right people going forward. What happened to your loved one was not your fault. They didn't die because of you or in spite of you. They died because of a lethal emotional pain that had nothing to do with you. Brush that guilt off your shoulders. It doesn't belong to you. Know that.
One thing that I remember from the first time that I heard you speak, and also other times as well, you talk about when you were kind of en route to the Golden Gate Bridge, and how if someone would have spoke to you in your time of pain, that really could have made a difference. Do you still feel that same way today? Do you still feel like a conversation really can save lives?
No, I know it for a fact. A conversation does save lives, and this is how I know that. I had made a very specific pact with myself. If one person says or does this, I will. If one person says or does this, I won't die today. And if one person says, "Are you okay? Is something wrong? Or can I help you?" or a variation of the three, I would have told them everything and begged them to save me. Nobody did that. My father tried to reach me that morning in his own way, but he didn't ask the questions. And that's not his fault. Nobody taught Pat Hines suicide prevention. He's not to blame. Um, but had someone at the bus ride or on the bridge said those words, I was in a place of ambivalence then. I wasn't ambivalent when I was with my father. I was determined. When I was in the bus and on the bridge, I was ambivalent. I wanted someone to stop me. I couldn't stop myself. Now, I wholeheartedly recognize this notion of you have to save yourself. I get that from people. I hear that a lot. And I can appreciate it. Today, I save myself. Today, as a self-aware person living with bipolar disorder, I save myself every time. But that needs to be taught from childhood. Resilience needs to be built in our children because they're lacking resilience today.
Let's talk about your advocacy and the ways that you have helped hundreds of thousands, probably a million people at this point, if we're being honest, you know, have a more honest conversation or be more aware of just the fact that so many people, I'm not sure what the statistic is at the moment. I know 1 in 5 deal with a serious mental health condition.
Yes, yeah. The new documentary is called The Net. It's about the 90-year effort to stop suicides at the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm very proud to say that after we worked for 20 years to raise the net at the Golden Gate Bridge, it has been put in place. And as of 2024, for the first time in 90 years, suicides reduced at the Golden Gate Bridge by 73%, which is absolutely incredible. We have learned unequivocally that reduction of access to lethal means does in fact save lives. It's one of the most powerful tools to do so, alongside the caring letters that were invented by Jerry Motto, and the crisis and lifeline centers and call lines, text centers.
That is really beautiful. I'm excited to see the next documentary. I feel like every time I talk to you, Kevin, you're doing something. You're like, oh yeah, I just released a new book. Oh,
Well,
and then I'm working on
I did
this.
just
And then
release it. I released a
you
new
did.
2 days ago. It's called The Art of Wellness: How to Find, Live, and Stay Mentally Fit. It's available now, and it is a guide to students across the globe to better balance their brain, mind, behavioral, mental, physical health, and well-being. And there's a journal, a 30-day journal to journal your mental health and track your mental health at the end of it. And there's a fill-in section at the end to determine where you are in your brain and mental health and what you need to do to get better.
That's awesome. Do you sleep, Kevin?
I sleep like a rock. I sleep so well. You have no idea. I sleep so well. I used to say I sleep like a baby, but I said that to a mother and she was like, babies don't sleep. And I was like, whoa, okay, never mind. I sleep like a rock from now on. It's fine. No worries. But yeah, she was a brand new mom and she was very upset with me. But no, I sleep very well. And here's the thing: we travel for 5 days and speak, and then we take 2 to 3 days off in that location, or we go and we take June and July off for the month where we're just visiting family around the world. So we definitely take our respite time, my wife and I. So we're good. Thank you for asking.
Good. Yes, that respite time is critical for sure. Um, so, I mean, I know you're working on so many things, but what's next? Is there anything that you're really looking forward to? Is there anything that you're really working towards that you want to share?
Two things. One, I mentioned, I'm really excited about The Net. I started making that film in 2010. It didn't work out. Started making it in 2013. It didn't work out. Started making it in 2019. Pandemic hit. Didn't work out. Making the film now, and it's really going to do it's going to have a tremendous effect on the world when it comes out. And I'm really excited about that. Next to that, um, uh, this I'm working on a new book called Unbroken, and it is really about how to release the narrative of suffering or victimhood in your life. Because if we believe we're suffering or sufferers, and if we believe we're victims, even if we have suffered, even if we have been victimized, well, that's all we'll ever be. So if we can come out of that ideation or that ideology to say that we are, in fact, the heroes of our own journey, just like Deadpool and Wolverine. If we can do that, we can we can move the needle on this cause and really change some lives together.
And really make a difference. Uh, if someone wants to know one way that they can do a better job of supporting their friends, their family, those around them when it comes to suicide prevention, what is something you would say to them?
Ooh, I got it right off the bat. So listen to understand, not to respond. Hear them. Sometimes your friends, your loved ones, they just need to feel seen and heard more than anything else in the world. And a lot of people don't feel like they can tell anybody their deepest, darkest problems without being judged. If you can hold a lack of any judgment and just listen to understand, not to respond, you can save a life.
That was really good. That was beautiful. Sorry. That was, wow. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And one word that we have had in common is hope. And I know you call your tribe of people Hope Nation. You're really big on just spreading hope in whatever way that you can. I do have one question for you, though.
Yeah.
I think this is my final question, but what does hope mean to you?
Well, first of all, Hope is my birth grandmother's name.
Oh.
So it means a lot. It means a lot. And it means to me that while hope may not be uh, an action plan, it is always around the corner wherever you turn. If you don't see or feel hope, keep moving forward. You haven't walked far enough to reach it. Keep going.
You need some little finger snaps in there. Kevin, you always have such a beautiful outlook on this work. I know it can be daunting at times, but just know that I really appreciate everything that you do and how hard you work to help others. It's always inspiring, and if I'm ever in need of just some encouragement, I always think about your talks and what it is that you do. So thank you for just being you and for always sharing.
Thank you very much. And to everybody who wants to find out where you can follow my work, it's at Kevin Hines Story across all socials, at Kevin Hines Story across all socials, or you can go to kevinhinesstory.com. The Hindsight's podcast, HINESIGHTS, and my newer book, The Art of Being Broken, How Storytelling Saves Lives.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Mikhayla. Good to see you.
Thank you again for tuning in to the Hope Mindset podcast, and be sure to get connected with us on social media. You can find us anywhere with the @name @HowAboutHope. And stay tuned for more episodes. Go out there, spread some love, spread some light, and we'll see you soon.